I'm Chris Osmond, and this is My Take, a place where I will be asking the questions that the media doesn't seem to ask, especially the corporate media. I will be asking things like, why do the reporters that are on the presidential press tour, why do they continually let Trump tell lies, obfuscate the truth, and basically just mislead the public? I understand that they want to maintain access to the president, but this does not serve the American public in any way, shape, or form. It actually makes America weaker. And I do understand that many of these reporters rebut or refute the things that Trump says at a later time, but by then it's too late. It's the initial take that most people will view, especially those who follow and continue to believe in Trump. So, I will not only ask questions that don't seem to be being asked, especially by mainstream and corporate media, but I will also try to provide solutions to the biggest problems and issues that we face on a local, national, and international level. One question that I would like to ask, and I would like to do this without all the statistics and all the numbers that can be manipulated to favor anyone's view. I would like to do this in a way in which people themselves can analyze the situation. They can analyze our political leaders' words and deeds and compare and contrast them to what they see and how they live their lives in the real world. For instance, when Donald Trump claims that the economy is strong, and his proof is that Wall Street is doing well and the Dow Jones is over $50,000, what does this really mean for the majority of Americans or the majority of people in general? Basically, it doesn't mean much, because 80 to 90% of all stocks on the New York Stock Exchange are owned by 10 to 12% of the population. So when the stock market goes up, that means very little to you and your 401k, which may go up by $100 or $1,000, which is nothing that anyone could ever survive on, especially in today's economy. So, as I said, I would like to address and talk about some of the biggest issues that face us locally, nationally, and internationally. But I also want to provide solutions, some provided by me and others that I found online or in other resources. I do this because we have enough news sources or news channels out there that complain about all the biggest problems. What good does that do if they don't also offer a solution or offer solutions that others offer? So, for this inaugural episode of My Take, I would like to first talk about something local, something that I deal with in the city in which I live, which is Miami, Florida, and something I believe does have an impact and does affect people all over this nation. And then I would like to talk about something international. So tonight's first topic is going to be amenities in a city like Miami. While I do understand that amenities may seem like a relatively insignificant issue, they do indicate much larger problems. When your city doesn't provide amenities for the people who live within the city, it eventually doesn't provide things that they do sincerely need, things like infrastructure, things like safety net programs. All these things fall by the wayside. In Miami, where I've lived since 1985, I have seen the city go from providing events and festivals and all kinds of activities almost every weekend, at least every other weekend, to almost never offering any of these things. We used to have the Goombay Festival, we had bed races, we had the Coconut Grove Art Festival, the King Mango Strut, and many, many more. At the Coconut Grove Arts Festival, I remember seeing Cheap Trick on a Saturday and then going and seeing someone like Kenny G or Stanley Jordan on a Sunday. And those were free. As was the concert I saw of Hall & Oates at the Ventura Founders Day celebration. And as I said, all these things may seem insignificant in the grand scheme of things, and they are. They do indicate much bigger problems. Because as those things disappeared, so have things that do impact and affect us all. The thing that I've noticed the most in Miami is that there are many more potholes. The streets are just not being maintained as they once were. As a matter of fact, that was one of the things that I actually did admire about the city. Even though the construction was a bit troublesome and a bit annoying since it was everywhere at all times, the streets were at least paved properly and they were smooth. And your car didn't get jolted about and damage due to excessive numbers of potholes or sinkholes. Now, I can't say for certain that these sinkholes or potholes are definitely something that the city could manage itself, but it does seem that when we have certain construction activities, those potholes and sinkholes seem to develop nearby, which to me, as a field engineer, indicates that we are not getting proper compaction. Now, as for amenities, like I said, we used to have all these festivals all the time, and we used to have all these free concerts and all these free activities and free events to go to. Now in Miami, you basically have the option of going to a movie or going to dinner, or unless you're rich, staying home and just watching TV. Or you could go into debt, as many people are doing in Miami. You know, the recent study cited, Miami is becoming expensive like New York. But I can say with firsthand knowledge that New York at least offers a lot of things for one to do all the time, but not so in Miami. That is, like I said, unless you're willing to go into debt or unless you're rich. Miami used to have a lot of character. Just look at South Beach. When I first moved here, it was very desolate and it was a very sad place. There were a lot of old people in wheelchairs who were just basically living out the final years of their lives. There was a lot of drugs on South Beach. It was very run down. And then money came in, and that was a good thing. You could go to places like Washington Square and hear all types of live music. Or you could go to one of the many clubs, dance clubs, that were available on South Beach. And you could hear all kinds of music. Now it's just a playground for the posh, and it's boring. The unique characters that used to be in abundance on South Beach are no longer there because they can no longer afford to live there. And this is the case, as I've heard throughout the years, the case in several different cities, where families that have lived in the city for generations can no longer afford to stay in those cities. And it was those families and the characters that lived within those families that made those cities attractive to the rest of the world. But like those cities, Miami has become attractive most mainly for developers. And the rest of us are basically falling behind. So, what I say about Miami, and have said for the past few years, is this. Miami has outpriced itself. Evidence of this was described and written about in the periodical newspaper called The New Times, in which they talk about how production companies were choosing, instead of coming to Miami and doing model shoots and shooting TV and shows or movies, they were choosing instead to go to like Caribbean locations, because there they could get the same look and feel of Miami, but at half the price or less. So Miami outpriced itself, and that was years ago. And yet again, it's outpricing itself now as rents skyrocket. And the rich come here basically to hide their wealth or to basically live in a different community that they find interesting, that they don't mind basically ruining. Or you can't have a thriving business if your population chooses to buy up properties and then just basically not live in them for a majority of the time of the year. And the other thing about amenities, if you work hard all week, shouldn't you be able to play hard on the weekend? Shouldn't you be able to alleviate stress and enjoy life? Otherwise, what's the purpose? Anyway, as I said, that's just the local issue that I wanted to address in today's post. Now, as for the international, I would always wonder why this question never came up when Donald Trump was claiming that the war in Iran was basically to stop Iran from getting any nuclear weapons because they were going to bomb America or bomb Israel. Now, what kind of treaty could Iran ever agree to with Trump, Netanyahu, or Israel? What treaty would Trump, Netanyahu, and Israel ever believe? Regardless of how you feel about Obama's treaty with Iran in regards to nuclear weaponry, the International Atomic Energy Agency basically was verifying that Iran was limiting the enrichment of their nuclear material to 3% or some number like that. Like I said, I'm not going to be big on statistics on numbers, but it was basically limiting the enrichment to the point where it could only be used to create energy for the residents of Iran. or whoever was going to buy the energy from them. And then on top of that, Iran's supreme leader forbade the development of nuclear weaponry. So, given these two facts, what proof could Iran ever offer Trump in no matter what treaty they settled upon in regards to Iran's nuclear ability? What proof could they provide when one of the top agencies on nuclear weaponry is verifying that they aren't developing that? And one of their top leaders, if not the top leader, is saying that the country cannot develop those type of weapons. Why hasn't any corporate news reporter ever asked questions like this? It just doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense for anybody to go into a treaty with Donald Trump. He didn't believe anything that was covered under Obama's treaty. Why would he believe anything covered under any treaty that he comes up with? But, that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. But it does seem like Trump is getting away with a lot of things. And it does feel like we don't have the leadership now that could stop him, or that has the will to stop him. It boggles my mind that Donald Trump and his family can get away with so many things that maybe are arguably, but seem to be very apparently corrupt. And they are ruining this country, and they're ruining the entire planet. How is it possible that one man could basically be destroying all of the countries around the planet? Anyway, I'll leave you with that for now. Join me again tomorrow when I will be discussing more issues and trying to provide solutions to those issues. Thank you.
As with the book entitled Solutions, enough complaining, let's fix America. Questions will be asked here to help the masses separate facts from the lies and misinformation our leaders tell us every day. For more tools to help you help your friends and family, get the book mentioned above at Amazon.com today.